What is going on, guys? Welcome back. My name is Wolfe Glick, and today I'm walking you through a guide on the new Pokemon Guzzlord, which is one of the new Ultra Beasts introduced in Pokemon Sun and Pokemon Moon. And honestly, it's a Pokemon that hasn't seen a ton of love being used competitively at the moment, but it's really interesting. So basically, what do you need to know about Guzzlord? First of all, its typing is Dark Dragon, which it shares with Hydreigon, which was a very powerful Pokemon in VGC for many years, especially before the release of the Fairy typing. Ray Rizzo actually used it twice to win Worlds in 2011 and 2012, so definitely a powerful Pokemon in terms of offensive typing. Guzzlord is, it fills a bit of a different role because of its stat distribution. So again, the Beast Boost ability increases Guzzlord's highest stat when it takes a KO. And for all the sets that I'm going to show you, that's going to be special attack. And it actually gets a pretty decent move pool. It gets Wide Guard, it gets Stockpile, it gets Hammer Arm, Heavy Slam, and a bunch of other options, Sludge Bomb, Flamethrower, Draco Meteor, obviously because it's Dragon type. And the really interesting about Guzzlord is it has base 223 HP stat, which for anyone not super familiar with how stats work, that's enormous. That's an enormous attack stat. HP stat. And it does make up for it with lower defenses, obviously, I would hope so at least. And then low speed and then pretty low offensive stats, but it means that Guzzlord can be EV'd in very specific ways to make it survivable and have offense, because it never needs to invest in its HP. So yes, let's just jump into the set. So the first set, and the one that I think is probably one of the best, is an Assault Vest set. These are the EVs that I chose, and for all my sets I chose to go purely special for this. Obviously Guzzlord does get some cool physical moves, but there's a lot of Intimidate and Will-O-Wisp running around right now, and so I never looked into any of the physical sets, because I think Guzzlord is often going to be intimidated if you're playing it in the way that I think it might, that might be good for it to be played. So these EVs, obviously, you don't need to invest in HP, so all of the defensive EVs go into the defensive stats, and then you maximize special attack to do the most damage. So here's a bit of, or some of the calcs that I've run to try and give you guys an idea of how much you can expect to be doing. So this is Sludge Bomb versus Tapu Koko. This Guzzlord set, in my opinion, is intended to be used in Trick Room. It's really slow, it underspeeds Marowak, and it's just so slow. But yeah, basically it has good coverage. Sludge Bomb is really good, especially when it doubles up into something. Draco Meteor can hit hard. Snarl is really good for reducing the opponent's damage output. Flamethrower is there for coverage for Cortana and Celesteela, and that kind of thing. So this is Sludge Bomb versus Koko, and this actually is without any EVs at all. So when you put EVs in, you can see Dazzling Gleam does about 70% at most, closer to 58% at min. So even a 4-time super effective Fairy type attack from Tapu Koko with a Life Orb. This is with Life Orb, guys. If you take away Life Orb, it's even less. Yeah, without Life Orb, you can see it's not even going to 2-hit KO. So that's kind of why I chose the Assault Vest as the primary item, because it extends Guzzlord's survivability by quite a bit, because it is such high HP. Yes. And next up, so I wanted to make sure, this is Timid Tapu Lele, and I don't know how common this is going to be, but just so you guys know, even Timid Tapu Lele has a 6.3% chance to OHKO, but that's Moonblast from a Tapu Lele, so that's going to be one of the strongest Fairy type attacks that you're taking. And of course with Modest, I should tell you guys, like, it's going to KO a lot more often. Most of the time you will get KO'd, but part of the cool thing about, one of the cool things about this set is that you do have Snarl, so at -1 you can always ensure that you're going to live a Moonblast unless they crit. But yes, and in return, this is versus max HP Tapu Lele. It has a very good chance to 2-hit KO. So if you paired Guzzlord with like an Oranguru, or you paired it with I don't know, like another Trick Room Pokemon that could do like a decent chunk of damage to Tapu Lele, or you chipped it first, or it switched in and you Sludge Bombed it, you'll be doing a lot of damage. And this is not factoring in the odds of a poison. So yes, so obviously that's kind of why I like Sludge Bomb. It doesn't KO the Tapus, but it does hit them relatively hard. So yeah, that's that. Garchomp, this is Z Earthquake doesn't KO. Z Dragon Claw doesn't KO, which is pretty important in my opinion. And then this is, okay, so obviously, so Snarl is often thought of as one of the weaker moves in VGC. It's mainly used because it hits both opponents' Pokemon, and it lowers their special attack by 1 stage. And so it's basically used as utility, but because of Guzzlord's Dark typing, it actually can do a decent chunk of damage to anything that doesn't, that it hits for super effective damage. So this is versus Marowak, and as you can see, it has a very good chance to 2-hit KO Marowak, and in return it resists both of Marowak's stabs. So, you can see that Marowak Flare Blitz most likely not going to 2-hit KO, and then Shadow Bone probably going to 3-hit KO, but that's not bad at all in my opinion. And you can also go Snarl to Draco Meteor if you really want to be safe, because Draco Meteor does a lot of damage to Marowak, so I thought that was really cool. Other fun things, this is Torkoal Eruption without any modifiers, so Guzzlord is very, very good versus Torkoal Lilligant, like exceptionally good with this Assault Vest set, because it takes such little damage. You can see Heat Wave, 10%. Literally 10%. Like, that's pretty ridiculous in my opinion. So Guzzlord amazing versus Torkoal Lilligant. And then lastly, this is Z Draco Meteor from Salamence. This is like very strong, you know, like relatively strong attack, not even 92%. Like at most 91%. It can go as low as 77. So yeah, so that's basically just showing that Guzzlord has really, really nice bulk, and it lives a lot of stuff, especially on the special side. Especially with the Assault Vest set, I think it's important to pair with an Intimidator, but we'll get into that later. Next up, so I wanted kind of a set that could use Protect, but was still offensive. One of the main problems I had with Guzzlord is that it didn't KO a lot, and so this is a yeah, so this set is Protect, Snarl, Sludge Bomb, and Draco Meteor. You're dropping Flamethrower here. I spent a long time staring at this set trying to think if you could fit Wide Guard, because I do think Wide Guard is really important, but on this offensive set, I think it's actually better that you don't, I think you need all your coverage moves, because without Snarl, you only have Sludge Bomb and Draco Meteor, and that means that, like, you don't have it, like, once you Draco Meteor, you're a lot weaker, and Sludge Bomb isn't that strong without the boost, unless it's hitting things for super effective damage. So I think part of why Guzzlord is good is because it can just sit and Snarl, and it will weaken your opponent, and it will boost your yourself. So yes, that's what the set is. This set, again, intended to be used in Trick Room more as a sweeper, and this is for teams that don't have as much for the Tapus, so they need a little bit of help. Like, for example, if your Trick Room setter is Porygon 2 and you're struggling against, like, Tapu Lele, for example, this set is a lot better because Sludge Bomb plus Ice Beam will KO Porygon 2. So this is we're not looking at that. This is Sludge Bomb versus no bulk Tapu Lele. Some Tapu Lele will have bulk, so it won't KO, for example, max HP Tapu Lele, but or like it probably won't. But this set is intended to be used with chip damage. Tapu Koko will KO, Tapu Bulu will KO, obviously. This is Draco Meteor versus Garchomp, and the EVs actually, so this is -1 Garchomp, is a 3-hit KO most of the time. So that's what the defensive EVs are for. On this set, just to show you guys that it can KO Draco Meteor, and in return, if you Intimidate them, it's a 3-hit KO. It obviously will live even without Intimidate, but if you want it to 3-hit KO. And this is Draco Meteor from Salamence, so this is not Z Draco Meteor, this is just regular Draco Meteor. But as you can see, it's probably not going to OHKO, which is pretty nice. So I don't know how often that's going to come into play, but I think it is nice to have, especially because I think on Trick Room teams, for example, if you have Oranguru or Porygon 2, I think sometimes your opponent will use their Z moves to try and weaken that Pokemon. Like, I know that when I use my Salamence, I will do that myself sometimes. And so it's nice to be able to say I can live a Draco Meteor after they've already used their Z move. So that's just to give you guys a good idea of what Guzzlord can survive. And lastly, the last set that we have is, this is a bulkier set. This is, again, I dropped Poison Sludge Bomb here because I really wanted to fit Wide Guard, but I thought Protect was too important to give up, so I stayed with the stabs. Most of the time with this set, you're going to be using Snarl, and counting on the fact that it actually does decent damage, and you'll use Draco Meteor to pick up KOs and to hit things for big damage when you need to, but most of the time you're using Wide Guard and Snarl to support your team. So this is more of a supportive set. If you had a more offensive Trick Room and you wanted kind of like a middle ground, pseudo-support, pseudo-offense mod, I think Guzzlord could fill that role very well. Because of its typing and its support options. So this is obviously the EVs, you can tell just by looking. Also, I really think this is, like, just in general, as an aside, I think the fact that all the EVs are clustered in this little, like, 3 range area is actually pretty funny. Just like the way it looks pretty goofy. But yeah, that's what you get when you get a Pokemon with, like, 228 base HP or whatever it has. Yeah, basically this set, even by you get the EVs, you can see it's focusing a lot more on the defenses, and I think that makes sense with Citrus Berry because most of the time you're using Snarl to help pick up KOs and help weaken your opponent, so you don't need to invest that much in offense. The offensive Calc I ran, I wanted to make sure Draco Meteor could KO Garchomp, so that's what this does. You can see even with 4 HP, it will still KO. So 4 HP, 4 special defense, still going to OHKO with Draco Meteor. I thought that was important to get. Dazzling Gleam from Tapu Koko does not KO. That's what the special defense EVs do, because this is with Life Orb. This is without Assault Vest, and I think that's pretty impressive in my opinion. And if you Snarl them, you'll get 3 KO, which is pretty nice in my opinion as well. And if they don't have a Life Orb, it does even less. So you can see this is not a lot of damage, in my opinion at least. Okay, it's a lot of damage, but like, it's considering it's a 4 times super effective attack, it's not a lot. And what's also nice with this set in particular is Wide Guard blocks Dazzling Gleam. And so, oh sorry, wrong. Oh no, spoilers, sorry. So with a Life Orb, Dazzling Gleam, and not Intimidated, right? But let's say you start Wide Guarding, Thunderbolt does nothing. And you could pair this with like Marowak, and then Wide Guard plus Marowak just shuts down Tapu Koko. So there's a lot of options there. Yeah, Wide Guard's very good versus Dazzling Gleam. Wide Guard also supports Marowak because can't be hit by Earthquakes. But yeah, this isn't about Marowak, this is about Guzzlord. And then the defensive EVs, this is Garchomp, Dragonclaw. This is not -1. This is just regular Garchomp, Dragonclaw, and it's going to be a 3-hit KO without Intimidate. With Intimidate, 4-hit KO, which is really, really impressive in my opinion. Like, I think that's like a hugely positive thing for Guzzlord, especially considering at any time he can OHKO in return. And you can see Earthquake's doing no damage. This is super effective Dragonclaw. So Guzzlord is super bulky, and these are all super effective attacks, guys. You know, like these, obviously Dragonclaw isn't the strongest attack, and like -1 Dragonclaw is even weaker, but it is super effective. So I don't know, I think Guzzlord is pretty impressive defensively. And in terms of partners, I like Arcanine a lot with Guzzlord. Guzzlord is obviously super weak to fairies, so all three of these mons are pretty like decent versus fairies. Will-O-Wisp like is especially good with the Assault Vest set, and Intimidate as well, because in most of these sets, I've invested more into the special defense than the defense, and that's partially because Snarl is so good, and partially just because a lot of the fairy attacks I'm trying to survive are on the special side. But I think Arcanine pairs really well to support Guzzlord's physical defense. Yeah, I think it can also use Snarl, so if you wanted to drop, you could have double Snarl, or you could drop Snarl on one of them to free up a move. Arcanine can run a Z Crystal to try and really also threaten the Tapu Pokemon, and yes, Will-O-Wisp is also really good, like I said, to bolster Guzzlord's physical defense. Next up we have Gengar. Marcus used Gengar in London, that we didn't use this set, but he used Gengar in London. It's a it's another solid mon versus the Tapus because it's so fast. It has Focus Sash, and it outspeeds 3 of the 4 and hits all of them for super effective with Sludge Bomb. And should be OHKOing 2 of them. Both Coco and Bulu will get OHKO'd by Sludge Bomb, and it hits Lele pretty hard, especially if they're not invested in bulk. So yes, Gengar I think is pretty good. Again, I have Will-O-Wisp in this set just because, again, I like to bolster Guzzlord's physical defense. And lastly, we have Cortana, like another very good Pokemon versus the Tapus, thanks to its Steel typing. So I really do like Cortana a lot as a Pokemon, and especially to help versus the Tapus. So I haven't mentioned any Trick Room Setters. I feel like the Trick Room Setters are like, I feel like once you deal with the Fairy problem and maybe the Dragon problem a little bit, things become a lot easier in terms of everything else. So that's why I kind of recommended, my recommendations were focused more on dealing with the problem areas, which is like, I don't know, like fairies and actually primarily the Tapus. Those are like the top threats to Guzzlord in my opinion. So though all 3 of these guys are decent against Garchomp, Gengar probably the least so, but being able to burn it helps a lot, and Garchomp isn't the biggest threat to Guzzlord either. Yes, so I think that's pretty much it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please make sure to leave a like. And if you'd like to see more content like this, I'd like to inform you that there is a subscribe button. You can click it, and then things will be better for you, things will be better for me. Overall, it'll be pretty nice. So yes, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Peace.